This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast and community for creative people who value and enjoy working alone. Hello, everybody. I am Franklin Taggart, and this is Your Own Best Company, a podcast for people who love working alone. And I've been looking forward to this particular episode for a couple of weeks now, ever since the guest and I agreed that he should be a guest. So Joseph Bennett, welcome to the show. I'm going to introduce you a little bit more officially here in just a minute, but I just wanted to open with a very warm and heartfelt welcome.
I feel that. Thank you, Franklin. I appreciate you. I appreciate being here.
I had the pleasure of meeting Joseph earlier this year through a mutual friend, Meridith Grundei. And Joseph and Meridith host a podcast called Are You Waiting for Permission? And it's one of my favorite new podcasts that's come out just in the last year. And they have such a lovely variety of guests, and they go through the process of understanding where these folks have, sought permission in the past or waited for permission in the past. And now they're fully engaged in that passionate life that they dreamed about before. And their stories are just really, they're infectious, and they're compelling, and they're interesting. So the first thing we're going to say is that you need to check out the Are You Waiting for Permission podcast with Joseph and Meridith. But one of the things that I've discovered with Joseph is that every time that I hear him speaking or hear an interview with him, whether he's the interviewer or if he's being interviewed, as I recently heard on LinkedIn, is that he just has this presence that is very loving, very caring, and there's still kind of a not take any crap quality about him. And I like the combination very, very much.
You are too kind. That's beautiful. Thank you.
The more official introduction is that Joseph is the author of the forthcoming book, Rest, The Art of Doing Less, which is going to be the focus of what we're talking about this morning. It's a self-healing book that looks at our addiction to busyness. I can't wait to hear about that. He lives in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, with his husband and sometimes business partner Eli Hans and their 3 nearly perfect rescue dogs. Joseph can most often be found in his studio making art with other people's trash, sitting by the backyard pond writing poetry, or on the hunt for a great cup of strong decaf at local cafes. And Cool Beans Alert, he co-hosts the inspired and inspiring podcasts Are You Waiting for Permission? With the delightful and amazing Meridith Grundei. That doesn't even begin to scratch the surface, Joseph. And I think maybe I put too much of a limitation by saying 3 to 5 bullet points. I should have said, take as much time as you need.
It's interesting because I like projects. I like doing a lot of things. And I also live a very balanced life. I've worked hard to make sure that I have balance. But when I start to list the things that I do, and for those of you who can't see, I'm doing air quotes, doing things, it sounds like a lot. And my husband's like, you can't do that much because people aren't going to buy the book. They're not going to believe you. They're not going to trust you as an author. He's like, you need to do an afterword that says, by the way, I take naps every day, and you can find me in the hammock, and I cuddle with the dogs, and I take baths every night. So balance is a huge part that all of us are striving for.
Yeah.
And I support people in doing that because, Franklin, life is not a competition, and we freaking treat it like it's a competition. And we all most of us feel that we're losing. We're losing the game.
Yeah.
There is no game, okay? There is no prize at the end. We're all going to the same place.
Joseph, I'm really interested to hear about the book Rest and to talk a little bit about where the concept for this book came from and your own journey of going from an addiction to workaholism to someone who very actively seeks Restful restful activities and restful qualities in your life. Can you talk a little bit about how that journey unfolded for you?
Sure. Thank you. So what happened was I had an inspiration one evening as I was climbing into bed, and I said to my husband, Eli, I'm like, hey, what do you think I could write a book about? If I were to write a book about anything, what would it be about? And he said, you've already written a book. You did a project on Facebook called A is for Action. And it was 365 days where I showed up and gave what I hope to be inspiration or inspiring coaching about how we can take action in our life, how we can show up and towards, creating our dreams. And he said, you've already have that. You could just take that content and turn it into a book.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could do that. Yeah, the content is probably half good, right? I could tweak it a little bit. But I heard this other voice from my coach, Barbara Leggett, when she had been a guest on our podcast, and she spoke about if one more person says that they've been pushing through, right? And I got that in my bones when she commented about that we push through, right? We're like, let me do one more post. Let me just check one more thing. Let me send one more email. Let me try and get one more client. Let me do one more discovery call. And I was like, I can't do a book about action.
Yeah.
I cannot show up as an author and encourage people to do more. So when I woke up in the morning, I started looking at what is it that my clients are asking for? What are we collectively needing? And it was rest, the art of doing less. And how do we collectively give ourselves permission to do that? So that's where the book came from.
Very good. Now, in your own personal experience, where did you see yourself pushing through?
Can I just say everywhere?
Everywhere, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was a young gay kid trying to prove myself that I was worthy. So I was very proud of the fact that I worked 64 hours a week. I had 2 jobs, both of them in psychiatric mental health emergencies. One was inpatient work and one was outpatient crisis work, while going to school full time in graduate school, and had a boyfriend living in a different state. So I was always on the go.
Yeah.
And when I look back at that now, it's just so clear how my self-esteem was wrapped up in all that I was doing.
Yeah. You could always point to that and say, there's my worth.
There's my worth.
Yeah.
And we do it. And we get a lot of support for that, right?
Yeah.
And busyness becomes a competition. And, oh, you think you're busy? Wait do you see how busy I am? I haven't slept since the Carter administration, And I don't know that we need to be getting such big brownie points or blue ribbons for that.
Yeah.
So this book addresses that.
Well, it kind of, I've heard a recent trend in the entrepreneurial world, at least, that people are getting really burned out on hustle. And, that the whole mentality that you just have to be on all the time. And in the interview that I heard that you did with Meridith on LinkedIn, there were a couple of things that you were talking about, that it doesn't have to be really difficult to integrate rest into our lives. We just have to be intentional about it and do it. You gave some ideas. Can you talk a little bit about what are some practical ways that people can become more restful?
Thank you. The one thing that we can do so easily is to open up our Google Calendar and schedule it. We just look at, from 12 to 2, I'm not doing anything except daydreaming, or I'm just staring into space, or I'm looking at the walls, or I'm laying down. And the second part that comes with that is, what do you do with the guilt?
Yeah.
Right? Because we're going to feel guilty, especially if our bank account isn't where we want it to be, or our children are asking for something, or the dog needs to be picked up at the vet, or the daffodils need to be planted. What do you do with the guilt?
Yeah.
And that's really huge. And And I want to honor that. I want to honor that we do feel guilty until now when we are trying to take care of ourselves. And I write
Yeah.
in the book that taking care of ourselves has become a revolutionary act. And then in the next sentence, I'm like, what the fudge? How did self-care become a revolutionary act? Like,
Yeah.
we could begin from a place of self-care. So that's the invitation. And the book is mostly a workbook. So there's a lot of space for journaling and a lot of space for resting
Yeah.
and just contemplating how can we show up to our lives more fully without beating ourselves up over it.
Now, you are also a coach. We haven't really touched on that very much. With the clients that you work with, how prevalent is this problem?
You want to guess?
I'd say 100%.
I'm tending now to work with younger adults,
Yeah.
people in their 20s. So they're in the hustle. They're absolutely in the hustle. And the some that I'm thinking of now are active in some addictions that I won't go into detail, obviously, but they are, they're suffering.
Yeah.
And my own spiritual beliefs are we are not here to suffer. So what is it that we can do in our lives? What can we let go of, or what can we let in so that we are not showing up with all that suffering?
Just like any other addiction, I mean, the addiction to activity, it seems to be oriented at filling some kind of a spiritual or emotional hole. Do you see that as well in some of the people that you work with, and maybe even in yourself?
I'll speak for myself.
Okay.
And that's absolutely what helped me to shift from workaholism into writing a book on rest and helped me to heal. It was a spiritual journey. And that journey, I was just speaking about it in a gratitude circle this morning. It's been decades that I've been on it. So, Franklin, in this day and age, we think that we could be able to do a one and done, right? Like, let me do some spiritual work and just put a big check mark next to it and be like, oh, okay, I finished that part. Now what's the next thing on my list? So my spiritual journey has been decades long. And that, hi dog. And that has been how I've come to let go of that identity of I have to do more.
Yeah.
And so I read a lot of authors. I read mostly self-help books.
Yeah.
And I know for some people that might sound boring or dull and they'd like to escape into fiction. I get that. More power to you. Where I am in my process and in my book club, we do a lot of self-help work. And I like that. And it makes me a better coach and it makes me a better person. And it just gives me that all-powerful permission to show up and do nothing.
Yeah.
Just absolutely nothing. I wrote the Rest Manifesto. So it's this beautiful, colorful poster that I've been selling on my website. And one of the things is invite people to a party and have everyone do nothing. That's part of the Rest Manifesto.
I love it. That's so great. That actually would be a really enjoyable party for a guy like me. Just give me a chair somewhere and can we just sit here together and just be for a little while?
So can I put you on the spot?
Absolutely.
So how often are you showing up and resting in your life? What does that look like for you, and how do you do it practically?
Well, that has become a necessity of health for me over the last 11 years. I went through a horrible illness about 11 years ago. And
I'm so sorry.
Joseph, it was one of those things where the illness was probably brought on by neglect, a lifestyle of neglect, and I just could not maintain it anymore. My body said, I'm shutting down. And so rest became essential at that point. And so what I've had to learn how to do is I've learned how to not manage my time so much as to manage my energy. and rest is a big part of that. So I usually start my day with reading and short meditation. Then I help my family get the day started, walk the dog. And I don't work for long stretches of time. I work for probably the maximum amount of time that I work at any given time is 90 minutes. And then I take a break and go stretch and maybe go sit and be quiet for a while and recenter and things like that. So the one area that I've had to adjust most recently is the area of sleeping at night. I've always been a night owl since I was a young child. I loved to be up after everyone else had gone to bed and could, get my flashlight out under the covers and read the book and, get up and go watch the shows on TV that like Tom Jones was on after everybody went to bed. And I loved his show because he was just such a magnetic singer and musician, and the Johnny Cash show was another one. I remember getting up after everybody else had gone to sleep so that I could see it. So my night owl tendencies over the last couple of years have really had to shift, because I notice that if I don't go to bed at a fairly reasonable hour, and if I don't get a full night's sleep, the next day is really difficult. So it's been a necessity for me, and I don't mind that necessity at all. It made me really take it seriously and focus on it and have it as something of a priority.
You had me at neglect.
Yeah.
When you said the word neglect, sometimes and I'm not saying that this was ever true for you, but sometimes we wear that as a badge of honor.
It was the musician's lifestyle,
Yeah. Late nights.
Yeah.
Fast cars.
Smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, it was all a part of the package.
And again, I'm sorry that you went through that 11 years ago and everything that's happened since that, right? Because it's not like the health crisis happens and then we start our recovery. It's a long process, and I can appreciate and understand that. And I'm hoping that for your listeners, Franklin, that they can start to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Before the health crisis happens, because the health crisis is coming. It's there on the other side of the door, right? If we're not nourishing our bodies or resting or, getting enough sleep or taking care of ourselves or, maybe consuming less alcohol than we did the day before. There's a lot of things that we can do, but there's a blog post I wrote a long time ago, and it was about deservedness.
Yeah.
So we deserve to take care of ourselves. We deserve rest. But then the flip side of that is our ego mind does the opposite. And it's like, but I deserve another brownie because I've been working so hard. I deserve another pack of cigarettes. I deserve right? Yeah. So where do we find balance between that? Or where do we really talk ourselves into taking care of ourselves versus talking ourselves out of it?
Yeah.
Because we can say, oh, I deserve to have another cocktail, right? Yeah. I worked 60 hours this week. I deserve to tie one over or tie one on or whatever the phrase is. I don't drink, but whatever it is.
So the vice is the reward.
The vice is the reward. Yeah. And then what happens, right?
Yeah.
I worked with a client years ago, and we were looking at how to quit smoking. And his question was, when he was looking at an action, picking up a cigarette, he would just ask himself, and then what? If I light up a cigarette, then I'll probably smoke another cigarette. And then what? And just keep following down that path, that train of thinking, to seeing where it's going to lead. And I think we can do that with any habit. And then what?
Yeah.
I'll sleep in tomorrow. And then what? I'll wake up groggy. And then what? Then I won't go to exercise. And then what? Then I'll feel badly about myself. And then what? Oh, well, when I feel badly about myself, I usually go to the pantry and pick out chips.
Yeah.
And then what? So it's an easy, I'm always grateful to that client. I don't remember his name. It was years ago, but I'm grateful for that line of thinking, because we can just kind of predict where our habits are going to lead and choose
Yeah.
something different.
You know, you mentioned that your routine includes daily baths, sitting, naps in the hammock, and finding lovely places to sit and just enjoy whatever view or whatever angle of the world that you can see from there. What are some other things that you do practically to integrate more rest into your life?
So I have a morning practice like you do
Okay.
that includes journaling and tapping. Tapping is EFT, emotional freedom technique,
Yeah.
and short meditations like yourself. And I eat really well. Like, my husband went through a severe health crisis. He had a 10% chance of living.
Wow.
That was 7 years ago. And he really believes that food is like medicine. So
Yeah.
we eat well, organic and plants and all that fun stuff. And what else do I do? I rest well. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. And when
Yeah.
I say those things, it sounds kind of monastic, but man, there is so much joy in really honoring my body and honoring my path that it doesn't feel monastic at all.
Yeah.
Truly, I'm super happy.
What's really interesting is that it's like you're kind of describing the difference between license and freedom. It's like license, you can do whatever you want, but freedom is when you're really able to be in life, and you're able to take it in as fully as you can. And I love that. I love thinking about that juxtaposition. Yeah, sure, we can do anything that we want to, and it's going to have an impact on us. Why don't we go ahead and opt for freedom?
Oh, that's so beautiful. I've never considered it that way. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And what I'm really appreciative of in what's happening now in our daily conversations and in our narrative and even in our postings that we see is how much gratitude has become part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So I end each night with my husband, Eli, and we say, what are you grateful for today? What happened? What did you enjoy? What moments did you enjoy? And it makes me think of Bing Crosby. You're too young for this, but Bing
Oh, I'm
Crosby
not.
used to have a song that said, count your blessings instead of sheep.
Yeah.
And I get that, So part of taking care of ourselves is really noticing where we put our focus.
Yeah.
Are we putting our focus on what's missing? Or are we putting our focus on what we have, and, that we can breathe, that we can pee on our own, that we can walk, that we have shelter, whatever it is? Where's your focus?
Yeah. Exactly. And one of the things we haven't really talked about here is that in addition to all the other wonderful things that you are engaged in, you offer retreats at your home. And let's talk about that, because that has to be, that sounds just, looking at the background behind you, I can just sense that those retreats would be extraordinarily restful. And talk to us a little bit about how the retreats, what are they like?
Thanks. So I'm lucky that I get to live in, sorry, my voice isn't working yet today. I get to live in San Miguel de Allende. So that's in the center of the country, down near Mexico City. It's been voted the #1 city in the world, maybe 5 or 6 times since 2013. So it's a great place to come and visit, and lots of people do. And we were generously gifted with this gorgeous property. It's 5,000 square feet, and we have a couple of rooms where people can come and look at habits.
Yeah.
So if they want to let go of, being overweight, or if they want to recover from chemotherapy or cancer, which my husband had that experience, and he's a holistic cancer coach.
Yeah.
If they want to come and learn about writing and how to be a better writer, we have a Wonders Writers Retreat that's coming up April 25th, 2022. If they want to come and quit smoking, I'm a certified hypnotherapist and a former smoker of 32 years. So people can come here and have a vacation
Yeah.
and also look at their health and their habits. There's lots of spaces here. We have a beautiful Zen garden with a fish pond. We have an art studio, and it's just a great space with a massage room. And people can come here, sanmiguelretreats.com. They can book and set their intention and show up. And sometimes it's not about what they will get while they're here,
Yeah.
but what will they let go of when they're here.
And you have a special offer for people who are listening to this particular episode.
Goodness, we do.
We should mention that.
We should mention that. It was inspired by my co-host, Meridith Grundei, and she likes to offer a 12% discount.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm offering today. 12% discount on your stay at sanmiguelretreats.com. So you can go ahead and book that, and then I'll just send you a special offer to reflect that discount. And come and stay with us. It's a great
Sounds
place.
lovely.
You would love it.
12% off, sanmiguelretreats.com. And we'll make sure that there's a link in the description that goes right there. Joseph, if someone came to you today and they said, where do I start with this incorporating more rest into my life? Where would you point them?
So I'm going to keep it really, really simple because I'm a big fan of keeping it simple. So you start with the breath.
Yeah.
Right. Just pause. Just take a few breaths. Just notice what you're noticing, as we learned from William Burroughs. Notice what you're noticing. Are you noticing that you're running around? Are you notice that you're scared? Are you notice that you are suffering from FOMO, fear of missing out? Are you noticing that you're exhausted all the time? Just notice that. Set the judgment aside. You can put that on a shelf. If you need to judge yourself later for whatever reason, you can just know that it's up there on the shelf.
Yeah.
So breathe, notice. And I'm a huge fan of the pen and paper.
Yeah.
Just pick up the pen and paper, and instead of picking up your phone first thing in the morning, brilliant pieces of advice that I'm borrowing from Mel Robbins. If you don't know Mel Robbins, check her out. She's
Yeah.
brilliant. Pick up the pen and paper and just allow yourself time to reflect.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what to say, here's your prompt, which I thought I made up, Franklin, but then I realized it's from Natalie Goldberg, who's one of my mentors.
Writing down
And
the
it
bones,
is
right? Or was it
writing down the bones?
Yeah.
Yep. And the prompt is, what I really want to say is, and then you write.
Yeah.
And then you do it again. What I really want to say is, and then you write. What I really want to say is. Just try that for the next 28 or 30 days.
Yeah.
So just breathe, notice, pick up the pen. That's a great place to start.
Yeah. And it's simple.
And then schedule it in. Schedule in your time.
Put it on
Make
the calendar.
it a revolutionary act.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So in our closing time together, there are a couple of other things that I wanted to ask you about. Is your YouTube challenge still going on?
No, it's finished.
It's already done.
Mm-hmm.
I still want to draw attention to your YouTube channel because you do some wonderful things there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that people would be enriched by that. So, could you tell them a little bit about what you put up there and how they can find you there?
I don't know how they can find me because I'm not that familiar with it, but it's
Okay.
Art by Bennett, I
Yeah.
think, is what but I don't know like the long code that YouTube gives.
We'll
But
make
I'm
sure to include that.
generally in the studio making art. I make art out of found objects, and then I have a weekly video challenge where I read. Sometimes I'm reading from Rest. Sometimes I'm reading from my book that comes out next week called 20 Years Later. That's a collection of my art, and that's showing up on Amazon.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll read poetry. Sometimes I'm just hanging out with the dogs. So it's just me.
Well, it's lovely. I am touched by it frequently, and I just wanted to let you know that it's just you, and people need to check it out. I think it's just another corner of the world that you're lightening up, and
So thank you. I show up to that YouTube channel because of some advice that I got from Sumana Jetty,
Yeah.
who would be a great podcast guest for you, Franklin. She worked with people who are suffering from burnout. She lives in Canada.
Yeah.
And she said, when you do a video, go with the first take.
Yeah.
Just go with the first take. The second take, the third take, we think, oh, I'll just try this again and again and again. And then we get exhausted, right? So I just go with the first take based on her coaching. And it makes it really easy because they're just 2-minute videos. And bam, you record, you say something, you flub it up. I mispronounced the name of my book when I was doing a video the other day. I accidentally called it Out of the Blue, which is my husband's musical, instead of 20 years later. And I'm like, oh, that's not the name of it. Typically in the past, without Sumana's coaching, I would have been like, oh, I have to shoot this again and do it over again. So, allow in imperfection. We are watching curated stories from people on social media, and we're comparing our lives to their lives.
Yeah.
And then we're coming up short, right? In our own minds, in our own judgment. And that is so unforgiving and so harsh and so, can I say, sinful of how we treat ourselves with that. So just welcome in the imperfection and enjoy it. You know, I really love that meme. Is that how you say it? Meme. That shows a picture of the galaxy with, all the stars and this tiny planet called Earth that is a ball of rock that's on fire. And there's an arrow and it says, you are here. And it really reminds me of how, we are everything to ourselves. And at the same time, we don't matter at all.
Yeah.
So how can we release the thoughts that, I have to be perfect on social media, or I have to be perfect on YouTube, or I have to have a #1 bestseller, or I have to have 1,000 more likes? How can we release that and go lay in the hammock instead?
Well, before we get too far away from the subject, I wanted to mention that Sumana's episode on your podcast, Are You Waiting for Permission, was one of my favorites. Just really wonderful conversation. And she's another light in the world for sure. So thanks for bringing her up.
She is a light in the world, as are you.
Thank you. You have so many things that are getting ready to come out. Your art book comes out next Friday. And that is the one that just... I'm assuming it has images of your art. Oh, there we go.
Yes, so
Check
here it is. It has
out.
images of my art. It talks about the pieces and the inspiration, the sizes. Sometimes it mentions the materials. I'm not very good at showing it because
just hold it right in front of your microphone. There you go.
There it is.
That is so cool. So that'll be available starting next Friday.
The 26th, Black Friday, and there's a flash sale on that day. And people can go and buy it if they choose to, or if they choose to go lay down and rest and do nothing, I support them in doing that as well. You don't have to.
Black Friday is a great day for that.
You do not have to do anything. There's nothing to do.
Yeah. Then the rest book. You've finished the rest book. And now you're submitting it for publication. So, and you're looking at a time frame of that it's going to be available sometime early in 2022. Can you tell us a little bit about the book?
So it's a workbook, self-healing workbook. And my intention, my creative visualization is that New World Library, hello, New World Library, that they will publish it. They're the publishers of Creative Visualization by Shakti Guin. She co-founded that company with them decades ago. And I would love to have them publish it. And if not, I am open to self-publishing. So it will be available one way or another.
Well, we have that to look forward to. How can people stay on top of information about the book when it comes out?
YouTube, because I show up every Wednesday and talk about it.
Okay.
Or they can join my email list, or they can absolutely just, what can they do? I don't know. I don't want people to do more. I don't want them to go follow me on LinkedIn or go follow me on Facebook or Instagram.
All right.
I want them to just know that at the perfect time, the book will show up in their hands.
Well, there are a dozen places where you can find Joseph online, maybe more. And so we'll make sure that there's a long list of them in the description here, but we won't go into all of them.
Okay, how about if they do this? How about if they come to San Miguel, they'll
Yeah.
stay here, they will rest, and in the hammock will be a copy of the book complimentary for them. Then they don't have to do anything. They just come on vacation and then they'll find the book in the hammock.
And they get a 12% discount on the retreat.
12% discount.
Joseph, that is just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
You're making me think.
Well, I think there's a conversation coming up with the wife after this podcast. You're like, hey, don't we have some frequent flyer miles we can cash in on?
I'm not a frequent flyer, but she is. And it's not something that we should do together.
Yeah, just come by yourself. Don't tell her I said that. I'm sure she doesn't listen to this podcast, so don't tell her I said that. So we love welcoming guests in. People come from all over the world, and we have healthy cooking classes here. We have a beautiful kitchen and lots of places to enjoy your meals, and the garden, as I said, and the art studio. And people come here and they just feel what it's like to let go.
Yeah.
To let go of that busyness and that doingness. And people bring their journals and their time for reflection, and people get coaching sessions when they're here if they choose to, depending on their package that they sign up for. So it's all available, and we're here.
Yeah. And you get to be in the company of Joseph and Eli and the dogs and
the dogs
and all of the wildlife around and the chickens and all the above, right?
All the above. And what we're looking forward to in April, as I began to mention, the Wondrous Writers Retreat. So we're going to be writing here at the space. We call it Casa de la Paz, House of Peace. We're also going to be writing at the pyramids, which are about 40 minutes away. We'll do a guided tour and then time for writing there. A ritual at the hot springs about letting go of our inner critic. We'll also be going to the botanical gardens and having writing ritual there. So it will be beautiful and mindful and intentional, and we look forward to having you.
Well, that sounds lovely, Joseph.
It's only 12 people, and I think as of today, there's room for 10 people.
Okay.
So
get in on that. Is that a sanmiguelretreats.com? Okay, so that's the place to go. Joseph, we've reached the end of our time. Is there something that you would like to leave people with before we go?
Can we go back to basics?
Sure thing.
So when in doubt, the teaching that is ancient that says, change your thinking, change your life, still holds true. So if you notice yourself feeling guilty or beating yourself up or pushing through or hating yourself or being toxic in any way in your life, look at what you're thinking and you get to choose something different. Choose a new thought and just start there. And if you want to get more clarity around that, pick up the pen. What I really want to say is...
Excellent. Well, that's plenty. Joseph, thank you so much for being my guest. This has been a lovely conversation, and I am assuming that it's going to be the first of hopefully several.
Thank you. I appreciate you, and thanks for all the ways that you're showing up in the world and helping us to manage through this thing called managing our own business, right?
Yeah.
My own best company. That's brand new for a lot of people. And you're helping us navigate that. And I appreciate your coaching around putting a QR code on our business card. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I did that. And I was like, oh, that's a Franklin Taggart coaching bit right there. So thank you for you.
Oh, thank you, Joseph. Listeners, my guest today has been Joseph Bennett. There are going to be a bunch of links in the description where you can find him if you want to. I'm sure that
Or
you want
just
to.
don't do anything at all. Go put your head on a pillow and look at the clouds.
Yeah, this is Your Own Best Company. It's a podcast for people who love to work alone. That's not to say that we don't need each other, but it is to say that we honor our need for solitude as well. And in addition to that, your subscriptions, your likes and reviews and shares are all appreciated very deeply. And I hope that you'll tune in the next time. Thank you, Joseph.
Thanks, Franklin. I appreciate you. Talk soon.
People who work alone aren't antisocial, at least not most of us. If people think you're weird because you don't want to grow a big company and you'd rather spend most of your time working by yourself, you're just hanging around the wrong people. Your Own Best Company has a Facebook group that you're invited to join right now. We understand the urge to close the door, let your imagination run wild, and stay there until your creative impulse runs its course. We also understand the features and challenges that go along with running a business to support our solo flight lifestyles. Joining the group is free, and it's as easy as clicking the link in the channel description. So go there now and just join the group. Want to hear more where this came from? Subscribe to Your Own Best Company on your favorite podcast app or on the Franklin Taggart Coaching and Consulting YouTube channel. To get in touch with Franklin, send an email to yobc@franklintaggart.com. Thanks for listening.